I want to share about, different perspectives and insights about the child EI, ASD, and any other disabilities. They have, especially emotional impairment and ADHD, and then ASD, those children, carry behavioral issues, right? So it could be behavior disabilities. However, I do not like to, use disabilities. However, they have a full of, baggage of behavioral issues, especially EIs and ASDs, ADHDs. So when we discuss about this and EI and ADHD, especially EI and ADHD, and then it applies to other, behaviors too, which one is first? And EI, they are born with the EI. So they had an EI. So they have this baggage of disabilities, not disability, I'm sorry, just behavioral issues. Especially EI is a very emotional issues, right? Emotional behaviors is very difficult. Most severe behaviors they show because it involves the emotional part. So they are born with the EI, so they have these disabilities, these behaviors, or they display these behaviors, so they are diagnosed with the EI. Does it make sense? So ADHD is the same. They are born with ADHD, so they have these impulsive, hyperactive, and restless behaviors, or they show these behaviors. So parents take them to the doctor, and then psychiatrist or clinical psychologist, they diagnosed him with ADHD. Which one is first? So it's like, chicken and eggs game. Chicken first, egg first, right? So it is important, insight we have to think about. It's not because to figure out which one, why it's a matter. It is a matter for the behavior shaping why, the behavior modification why. Because if they are born with EI, that means it's inborn disability. If they are born with ADHD, it's inborn disability. If they are born with ASD, it's inborn disability. So it's like a neurodevelopmental disabilities. These days we talk about neurodevelopmental disabilities. So all is neurodevelopmental disability. Most of disabilities are all neurodevelopmental disabilities, right? So these are all neurodevelopmental disability. And then our perspective is automatically we assume they are permanent impairment and they will have that until their last second. So that means their behaviors, because EI and ADHD and ASD and learning disability doesn't matter, because their behaviors are consequent outcomes of these disabilities, right? So these disabilities are precursors of these behaviors. And then these precursors are not, we can touch and change and modify and educate if it's inborn disability. If a child is born with IQ 30, and then can we increase their IQ to 80, 90, educable level? They can participate in school education. They can receive education. They can show those, outcomes. So it's a good question, right? So it is very important. If we believe these are inborn disabilities, inborn matter. So they have these disabilities. So they show these behaviors or learning, learning behaviors, academic behaviors, or just behaviors and functions. Then, as an educator, we get frustrated because there is no point we provide education. And then we agree that as a neurodiversity, and then that's a diversity. I cannot change myself because my Asian face will stay as it is. So in ethnic group, I'm Asian. It doesn't matter how hard I try. And then my old software mentality changed. I Americanized, and then my citizenship is Americanized, the American citizenship I have. And then I just did all those, plastic surgeries. So I have all changed my face. It doesn't mean I'm American, right? Because it's inborn, appearance. So it's a very, interesting topic. So we need to think about when we face children in education and we see our children. So their disabilities are like, permanent my exterior. And then, there is nothing, no cushions we can work on. And then we consider them as a neurodiversity, like ethnic diversity, gender diversity, all kinds of, we have a diversity and tall, height and short, right? And then large and small, and then big feet and small feet, and all kinds of, diversity we have because humankind itself, we are diverse, people. So inside our mentality, our brain, our belief, our perspectives, our, all are different. These are all diversities. So our disabilities, if we believe it's inborn and we just, there is nothing we can do much. And then we have to trust, we have to believe in neurodiversity. And then our, job is not education. It's more like a care, nurture, right? And based on their needs, and then just make them just live comfortably in the well-being, right? Welfare. We just focus on that part. It's a very, sensitive topic. And I see as an educator, I see opposite. I'm not saying, I'm not just, deny, that thing inborn. It's all about, by the environment and just nurture. I'm not saying that. However, think about them. I'm from other country and then raised and lived and get all 12 education, K-12 education there. And then I came over to this country and over age 30. So I was already all formed. My mouth and tongue, positions all speak in Korean, not, English. So I have a severe accent, still severe accent, right? And then even though my appearance not changed except gray hair, so it's black, changed to gray. Other than that, pretty much I'm all same. And then my mentality, I could say about 64, 60%, 70% still I'm in Korean mind. And then 20, 30% I'm more like adjusted to modified to American culture. I have 2 kids, 2 boys, and one came with us at age 3. And then my second one was born here. And then their appearance are 100% American, Korean, even though they are very tall and to me it's very handsome, Asian. However, their inside, their mind, their mentality and their beliefs and their perspectives and then their speaking language is 100% they are American. I may say about 99% and then 1 or 2% they may have a Korean's, perspectives because they are raised us, especially discipline-wide, because self-discipline was my focus when I raised them and just, in home. because of self-discipline is not for me, it's for them. Because, anyway, someday they gotta be independent and live by themselves, and they make their own life. And then I believed, as an educator, at the time I was still educator, I believed, self-discipline is the most important human, characteristics that they need. So I focused on that. It could be a little bit different because in culture here, we respect more children's natural tendency and natural traits. Other than that, they are 100% Americans. So if we believe that's inborn, characteristics or inborn, we believe that in the nature nurture theory, right? If we believe that, they should be Korean, at least half Korean, but I never seen any ethnic, children raised, reared in home by American immigrant parents are just 100% or just more percent to their, ethnic culture than Americans. Most of the kids are all Americanized, even though they just have a feeling why that they may feel more comfortable with their own ethnic group. So this is human nature, right? It's like a generation wide. We just feel comfortable with our own, similar age people, and then children feel more comfortable with their own age people than older people or younger people, right? So it's more like a familiarity, not really like a, other things. So other than that, so that tells a lot of many examples we see. It's like especially those, adopted children or just twins got adopted by different families, and how much they are raised differently, even body size, and just like a totally different. When they are born, and then it's just like the same twins. However, in different nurture, and they got raised, reared, and then they became different people. So it's more differences than, similarities. So we apply this to our disability, perspective. So I see children, instead of being born with EI, disability, impairment, even though we call it in Michigan still just emotional impairment, I see in nurture-wide, they started showing these behaviors, very aggressive behaviors, very emotional behaviors. So any kind of children's aggressive emotional behaviors, I take that as a self-protection. It's a safety, self-protection from the safety threat. So it does not matter. It doesn't mean a parent threat them or just their home is like a violent home. I'm not saying that. However, parents' inconsistency or even, permissive parents, even protective parents, even child-oriented parents, all those wonderful parents, all focused on child safety, welfare, and their happiness. Still, children feel somehow threat in that environment, and then they started showing those. It's based on their born temperament as well. So we cannot completely ignore those, born nature. So temperament-wide, because parents, daddy is very impulsive, and the child could be impulsive, traits the child could have, right? And parents are very passive and very lenient, and then child could have those. So based on how bold they are, how prideful they are, and based on that, and then they're in the same similar situation, their reactions and responsive could be different. So it does not mean in that shaky home they grew, they show these aggressive and violent behaviors, defiant behaviors. I see just aggressive and defiant. It doesn't mean all just the same. Some children, if they have about 4 siblings, 3 siblings, and then their behaviors are different. some siblings are very quiet and reserved, and some siblings fight and against the parents. Some siblings just run away. So always when, human beings, especially children, in those, threatening, fearful environment, and then they show three, reactions. So one is flight, so run away, and then second one is freeze. They are become very passive because they freeze. So they just they feel weak, and they are very fearful. They could not move. And then third one is a fight. So fight, that means they just protect themselves through fighting. So that's how I interpret those, behaviors. I'm not saying just 100%. Most children with those aggressive, defiant behaviors are all because they felt those threatening. I'm not saying that. However, I see most of those cases, self-protection means, when they feel those in the environment, and they feel useless, or they are isolated, or they are neglected, or they don't see their own just competency and confidence, and then they could show those kind of behaviors. So I'm saying that's gradually child earns those behaviors, and then started having those behaviors, and then parents or teachers see those behaviors as it's like very atypical. Let's say just like 4 years older, so that's small baby, still they are baby, right? Preschoolers so have a severe those aggressive and defiant behaviors. That's a very rare case and atypical. And then adults take them to the psychiatrist or just clinical psychologist, and then they diagnose them as EI because there is no other labels they could give. Because 4 years older, so 6 years older, those 1-digit age children barely made 4 years life, 6 years life in this world, they already have those difficult behaviors. So that's how they earned, EI. And then ADHD is the same. Yes, many people believe they have ADHD because their parents had ADHD, daddy had ADHD, and their grandma had ADHD, and they believe that is inherited. And it could be true. However, you are born with it doesn't mean you show it. Always you are born with it, and then the environment is a very calm environment, and then very quiet, and then you never show it. However, when you face a different environment, and then human behavior could be different and show differently. So that's how we show. So why this one is like inborn nature or just environment, and they are just learned those behavior, because most of behavior in the ABA theory said all human behavior is a form of communication, and then all human behavior is learned. So learned means you repeated the same behavior, and then it became habituated, and it became chronic behaviors. So that means it's our habits. Like we are right-handed people, we use more right hand, and the more left hand became so useless, right? So that's how just like a form of communication, but learned and then habituated. So learned and then became, in the beginning, I say just incidentally they had, show the behavior, and then this behavior is communication, right? It's, they observed it worked, and then they learned the causal effect. So they did this, and then this one is the outcome, and then that was a nice outcome. And then they learned those causal effect relationships, and then they display that again, and then the same thing happened again, and then they got, they earned those again, and then they repeat those behaviors, and then became habits. So it became habitual behavior, and it's very hard to change, because of human behavior, you earn the 3, at age 3, you learned that behavior, it goes up to until age 80, and in the past, that 80 means until your last second. That much, human behavior dies hard. So that we have those things, that much, it's very hard. And then all behavior is a form of communication means all human behavior is intentional, purposeful, right? Purposeful, and then meaningful, not meaningful, but intentional. And then they have all purpose why they are having those behaviors, like a learned behavior. It's the same theory. So it's a behavior shaping why the modification why it is important again, because we believe it's an inborn behavior, inborn disability, and then humans are pretty much off their hands, and then it's very became helpless, and the adults feel helpless because my child has EI, and then instead of actively we try to shape and modify those behaviors, we pretty much respect those behaviors because we believe that behavior is a part of a child. So we respect the child, and then we respect their behaviors, and then pretty much we try to accommodate those behaviors instead of working on the behaviors. That's why our perspective is important. If we see those behavior is inborn, EI, ASD, and inborn, not ASD, I'm sorry, ADHD and inborn disability, or they learned after birth, so it's by environmental factors, nurture, made those behavior, shaped those behaviors. Because if we say all behavior is learned, that means it's not inborn disabilities. It means they learned it, habituated, so practiced, repeated, and became habit. So that means it's changeable, modifiable, replaceable, right? Shapeable. So it's a matter of how. So we diagnostically approach those behavior, and then we have a step-by-step. There is no way you can change the behavior overnight, because behavior is like our habits, our routines, right? So we cannot do that. So again, first, you believe all human behaviors are learned, and then you don't believe a disability. You should not believe a disability is inborn disability. So it means learning disability, they are born with a learning disability. It doesn't make sense, right? Because when child is born, they even barely speak. So how can they have those learning disability at the time? So they have an inborn learning disability, or they could not learn early literacy and they became learning disability. So it's not just like a clear cut, which one is which, nature, nurture. It's not clear cut. However, we see more toward nurture and environmental factors. Because like ABA said, it's most of human behaviors are learned. Because as a helpless baby, you see them, you don't see any behavioral issues. You only see their crying and laughing, right? Smile. So, and then reflex. So it's like, if we believe in nature too much, and then our adult job and education, there are not much to do. And then we believe in nurture more, and then these are full of educational matters, because of how we shape them. And then we can shape humans' behaviors. And then child is ADHD, could not stay in seat. And then we gradually they're sitting behaviors. It's not just like mentality. Physically, it is okay. Their body accepts long sitting. So gradually you have to sit. So we have a chaining and shaping, right? So sitting, long sitting, you start like a child right now can sit only just like 5 minutes, and then you start with 3 minutes of sitting, and then good sitting, and then 5 minutes, and then 8 minutes, and then 10 minutes, and then 60 minutes. It's the same thing. You to do push-ups in the beginning, you barely could do one. However, you start to one, and then you could just, it takes about, 1 week or 2 weeks to do two, because your arm strength gotta be ready, right? And then your mentality, psychological things. And then it took about 2 weeks, and then you could do two, and then it could take another week, do three, right? 3 push-ups. So the marathon is the same, cross country is the same, running outside. You run 1 minute, you run 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes. So you gradually, your legs and your bodies, especially your heart, can stand those. And then gradually your strength, your, body. So when your wake up time is 7 o'clock every day or just 9 o'clock, however, you have a lot to do because you grow. That means you have more and more responsibility. That means you have to wake up and then just a lifetime longer and longer to complete all those work, right? And then you cannot just suddenly say, oh, I'm gonna just get up, 5 a.m. from tomorrow. You cannot do that. What do? You just every day 5 minutes less or just 2 minutes less based on your body condition. So usually you get up at 9 o'clock and then you say, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna get up 8:55. And then next day or two, and then 8:50. And then you still feel okay. And then you believe just you're fine. A few days or 3 days, several days, you get adjusted those 10 minutes 5 minutes less sleep and 10 minutes less sleep, naturally your body get used to it. And then you do 8:45 and then 8:40. You gradually reduce your every just 5 minutes. And then between that, it lapses like, I don't know how many days it could take, because you have to check yourself for your mental processing why you are okay. Or you could make about 5 minutes nap or just 10 minutes nap can reinforce those lack of time. So you reshape your body systems, what time you get up, what time you sleep, and then those sleep duration. Before you just made 9 hours sleep, and then your goal is like 6 hours of sleep, and then you have to reduce to 3 hours. And then you cannot just reduce to 3 hours just overnight. That's why we fail all those New Year's resolution, right? So you gradually, you respect your body system, and then you will gradually reduce so your body can take it. So that's how we shape our students' behaviors. So they don't feel any difficulties. Just very gradually, we shape their behaviors. Okay, and then they're just learning why those deficiencies is the same. We start by each training, right? Without knowing individual sound, children cannot blending the sound and read the sound. If child has a good visual attention, visual focus, and then they can track, they can, visual acuity, they could see, and then they have a good, visual memory, visual sequential memory, and then you can use a whole word method. You show those whole word, and then you could just do it. It's like a still shaping is there. So it's like 5 words in the beginning, and then for 5 days or 10 days, so you just show same one very quickly, 1 second, per card. And then, you just remove the first card and then add a new card, and then remove the second card, add a new card. So that is shaping. Chaining and shaping. So human behavior and learning and just academics, and then those, cognitive functions, deficits, even attention, anything you can reshape their current states by chaining and shaping. That's an amazing part of human capability. Human capability is better than animals because human is modifiable, adjustable. It's just a matter of how you do it. Okay, those labs, those in the sequence of those skills And then based on the individual differences, like I said, it's just a Brad, Matt, Brian, John, all individual child has a different functions, different capabilities. Based on that, John could have just like just increase only 1 minute sitting. However, Matthew is a little bit more capable, and he could do about every 2 minutes shaping, if to draw the chaining wide. And then, Matt, he could go just more or just less. So based on the child capability, we adjust the shaping and chaining. Okay, so today I just talked about, how we see, human disability and behaviors, especially emotional impairment and ADHD. Are they born with it, or they are formed, learned, in nurture environment? So we are not saying just like this is clearly, this is a born nature and this is just nurtured that. I'm not saying that, but matter of all mixed. However, it's not 50-50. Okay, it's not 50-50. However, which one is bigger? I see nurture is bigger, because that means not just every nurture we cannot rate same, because some teachers are very capable. Some parents are very capable. Some parents are naturally very passive, not capable. It doesn't mean they are just dumb or just, their ignorance are really not just, I'm not saying those. However, it's all about our talent and gift. Some people are cognitively very, structured, and then know the child and then see the child, and then they know exactly this, okay, this, and then they could, evaluate the child and screen the child, and then they easily just, they know, they never learned it, because there is no one just only could do taught by others. We are amazed many times, right? Where did I learn this? And then you feel proud of yourself. So it's all by the, there are very competent teachers with a very strong teaching efficacy. And then there are teachers that have lack of sensitivity and sense in teaching. We could say they just love children. They came to teaching field. However, they are not really good teacher, teaching skill-wide, human-wide, very good people. However, teaching-wide, they are not very smart teachers. So everybody's different, right? All moms and daddies are same. We raise kids. However, it's all moms. We don't say all moms are very wise and they have wisdom in raising children, right? So we are all different. That's why our children, it's not, what I'm saying, it's not children's capability and incapability. It is more adults. Adults are as a nurture, and their environmental factor, and then adults are environmental. One of their environmental factors and precursors to their disabilities and their behaviors. So when they met, luckily, good teacher, that means it's not nice teacher. Good teacher means competent teacher and very smart teacher. They met, and then they could have a new life. Like 1 year, all those disruptive behaviors gone, and then they have a very strong self accomplishment, because the teachers showed them they could be a good learner. So, I can learn. It's a new realization. They realized, oh my gosh, I never thought I could learn, and I learned, and the teacher gave me that light. And then their behavior just like suddenly dropped. Why? Because they became very prideful child, competent child. Now they have a trust in themselves. So I developed my own trust. I can do it. And then there is no point, because their attention shift before how I can find fun in this classroom. However, now they just eyes are very sparkling because they want to learn more. And they just see their self-accomplishments, that great feeling. They want to see it. So that's how, we have to let them taste that. And then those classroom and those children will not forget about their teacher, that particular teacher forever, because that teacher gave them see the light, see the sunlight, they could do something better and more, not just like waste their time for something and then got scolded, reprimanded every day. Not that kind of a life they have. Okay, so I started with this, simple, inborn nature and nurture and then disabilities and behaviors. And then it just became like this largely I just talked about, but I really hope, you guys have the concept major, just, principle I try to talk between this comparison of nature nurture part. Okay, so important part means all our children wait for good teachers who can teach them. Okay, as much as we wish every new school year, we wish only good students come to our class so I can have a good year. As much as we wish they have all those wish to meet the good teacher so that teacher can give me new life and then I can be a competent learner. Okay,